Well, how would you feel? Um, for the last 4 to 5 years, you haven't been employed. You've got a heart to serve. You've been serving your country. You've been serving your community as a firefighter in Victoria. It's been your whole life. And all that was taken away from you when COVID struck.
Mm.
But we've got some good news. Today, Fire and Rescue Victoria are reinstating all those firefighters who lost their jobs because they stood for their liberty of conscience. They fought a clean fight. They fought a tenacious fight. They are decent men. And Victoria is now going to be a whole lot better off because they're returning to work. What a great victory. Welcome to Club Grubbery, everyone. Club Grubbery this 22nd of July. Johnny, great to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks, Hoodie. Yeah, it's a developing story, isn't it? It's only just happened in the last hour, I think. So I've just got a text back from Josh Hawkes. He says that he's prepared to come on and give everyone a an update on what's happened. So we'll do that, won't we?
We'll do that for sure. We'll get him. We'll try and get him on today, perhaps after this program, unless he wants to come on towards the end.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see. Are we
We'll see how we go.
might be a bit. We're
A
not
bit
that.
hectic. Come on,
I'll
we
let
have
the
the
producer
technology.
know. I'll let the producer know. Hoodie.
The producer, who's
Yeah.
that?
You.
Me. Hey, listen. What do you think of the new technology, Johnny?
I like it, mate. Yeah, looks
Eh?
good. It looks good.
I
Look,
reckon. I reckon we could.
real
It won't be
flash.
long before we start to rival a current affair and people like that. In fact, no, we've already beaten them anyway.
We've surpassed them.
We've already beaten them. Look. Forgive us for waxing on. We've got a great guest with us today. He's a very intelligent podcaster. He does a lot of political analysis. He's a friend of Club Grubbery. He's a friend of a free Australia, and his name is Stephen Tripp from Commanding the Narrative. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Graham, and thank you, John, for having me on, and hello to your audience.
Mate, great to have you. So that's a bit of a launch pad for you. Fill us in. Tell us a bit about your background and then leading into what you're doing now.
Oh, I'm just blown away hearing about those firefighters because it's been so long. I mean, I don't know how they've gotten through it because what got me into all of this is when I lost my job during the pandemic and I was out of work for about 5 weeks, and it was traumatic for me just having to go through that because I was getting told that you're not going to be able to find work again, you're not going to be able to support your family, and I only had a 2-month-old baby at the time, and my wife and I just bought a unit on the northern beaches here in Sydney, and it was terrifying, and I think there's still some trauma there like you that I haven't dealt with, and I'm sure a lot of other people haven't dealt with as well, despite the fact that it was 5 years ago, having to wake up every morning just trying to think what restrictions are going to be put on us today. It was a terrifying time to think that these poor firefighters have been out of work for 5 years, 4 or 5 years is terrible. And it just goes to show that so many issues that we are dealing with in this country are the result of government, and there is the result of bad government. And that's what we're trying to do now with Australians for Better Government. But way back then, that's why I got involved politically, because I identified that the issues that we were facing were political. It's one thing to go and protest on the streets, and I think that definitely did play its part. It put pressure on the government to start rolling back the restrictions, and I think we saw that with the big rally in Canberra. Once that happened, the restrictions started rolling back, although those people never got the credit that was due to them for that protest. uh, the issues that we face in this country are political, and people need to get more active. And that's what I did. I ran in the 2022 federal election here in Warringah, and I learn a lot of lessons doing that. I think when you run as a minor party candidate, you're basically ignored by the media and in large part the public as well. So that's why I started commanding the narrative. It was called the Ex-Candidates back in the day. I started with Adam Zara. But I identified that we needed to build our own institutions, and one of those was media, our own independent media. It's incredibly successful in America, but we need to build it here in Australia. Obviously, the population isn't as big, and we don't appeal to an international audience like someone like Joe Rogan would. But what you guys are doing with Club Grubbery and some other people like Chris Coveries or Dave Right Now or Topher Field, Joel Jamal, these people out there they're building a network, and we can
Yeah.
all work together to get information out there, but also highlight good candidates that are going to come along the way. So that was a big motivation for me to start the podcast, and it's been incredibly valuable since then. We've been able to network with some great people and also expand our knowledge. The fact that we are able to have experts on to speak about energy or health or even just politics. I've learnt so much in that time being able to just interview people and talk to them and basically just be under the learning tree of people that have the experience, but they oftentimes don't get any shot on mainstream media. The broader Australian population are not hearing all the incredible knowledge that they have. So, thankfully we have the platforms like what we're all doing to get that information out there, and I guess to fill everyone else in on everything else as well. I have been involved uh, in the Liberal Party. I got to see what that was like internally and the factional battles that go on there, and it makes when you actually see it firsthand, you understand why that party's in such a mess and why they never propose nation building policies like they should or like they have in the past, and that's a big reason why we're in the mess that we're in. And that's what's led me to be the president of Australians for Better Government, and also I'm a part of another group called Let's Rethink Renewables because the energy side of things is a massive deal as well. So I've got a lot of rods in the fire, and it keeps me very, very busy. But I guess that's the short version of how I got to this point.
What was your professional background before getting into politics?
I'm a engineering surveyor, so
Mhm.
I work in construction. And when I lost my job, I was working on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It was, I guess, an opportunity of a lifetime. It was a great conditions, great working environment. And yeah, they basically brought in a mandate, and I lost that job. Look, when you're in construction, you know that you're never going to be on a project forever. Everything has a use by date. It doesn't matter how bad the project is or how good the project is. You know it's going to come to an end. But unfortunately, this was a really good project, and I just started it. So I was getting told, okay, your services are no longer required here, and you're not going to find jobs anywhere else because even other projects that don't have mandates, they're not accepting unvaccinated people. And this is what I thought. I mean, luckily at that point in time, I was in a financial position where I figured I could probably get by for a year without having to take the jab, and I felt like it was unsustainable anyway. I didn't think that they could bring the mandates in for that long, so I was happy to. Well, I wasn't happy, but I was willing to ride out that year. But what they were telling me was not correct. They were trying to gaslight me into just going along with it, telling me that I wasn't going to be able to find work elsewhere. And after about 5 weeks, I was starting to hear stories of people that were unvaccinated working on other projects. And I was like, well, how come they get to work, but I don't? So I just was like, okay, well, let's reach out to some people and see if I can get a job somewhere. And on that day, I had 3 job offers. So, to think that someone would put someone in a situation where they've got a young child that's just been born, they've just bought a property that they have to pay a mortgage to, their wife isn't working because they're looking after the newborn, and you take their employment away from them and then tell them that they're not going to find work anywhere else. I don't understand how people can put people in that situation. I mean, I think you can attack people in different ways, but you should never take their livelihood away from them. People should always be able to go out there, get a job, and be able to put food on the table and put a roof over their family's head. And I just don't, I mean, I don't understand it, and it just baffles me that people were out there so willing to see people lose their careers.
Mm.
It was a crazy time, and I don't think we've really dealt with it as a community, as a country. We've never really come to terms with what happened at that time.
Yeah. Look, John, you and Stephen have something in common. Also, I want to thank Stephen and his organisation for being a great support to the ACA, of which, of course, you are the chair.
Mm.
But you've both had a history inside the Liberal Party. Take it away, John.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting uh, what actually goes on in there, Hoodie. You probably don't understand on the outside just the machinations of those organisations. They really are very very deceptive. It's outrageous what goes on in there. Good people really don't shine through because the chosen ones, the people from the factional benefactors, they're the ones who end up benefiting. So, your grassroots people that would really make solid politicians never really get a crack at it. Uh, and even when you go into these pre-selections, and I've been into them, it wouldn't matter how these people perform at the pre-selection. I mean, they could just go in there, and in the old days they used to say that a blue cattle dog could get elected by the public for the Labor Party. Well, it's much the same within the Liberal Party. If you're from the right faction and they're backing you in, well, that's it. It doesn't matter who the opposition is at these affairs. They're a one-way event, and it's the same all the way to the top. I mean, I had Scott Morrison as the party director when I was involved, and I mean the decisions that were coming from even his level were outrageous, and it certainly wasn't a system where everyone gets the opportunity to be involved. It's very top heavy, and they rule with a stick. How did you find it, Stephen? I mean, just
Exactly the same. Exactly. And I was blown away because I'd come from One Nation. I'd spent some time there. And going to One Nation events, it was like going to a birthday party or a Christmas party. Like you knew you were going to catch up with good friends. You were going to meet new people that were like-minded. You could have really important conversations with them about policy and nation building strategies to benefit the country. Everyone there just, they were involved because they wanted to see Australia strong and they wanted to see Australia succeed. The Liberal Party was the complete opposite. And I think it was Dante that said, hell is not fire and brimstone. It's being trapped in a room with people you can't stand for eternity. That was my experience of the Liberal Party because, firstly, you walked in there and a lot of them, let's face it, were in their 70s and 80s and really, I don't know. I guess it was just a reason for them to get out. But there was a smattering of younger people in there, and you could tell that they were only there to fuel their own ambitions. And that's where the factions come in because they're more willing to do deals with the factions to get ahead. And the good people that are there, they get wide-handed, they get held down because they don't want anyone that's competent to rise up and rival the positions that these incompetent people already have. And you can see that manifest into government because the only people that get put forward, as you said, John, are the factional swamp creatures, and they have no real life experience. So a lot of the time, whether they're Labor Party, they're union hacks, or Liberal Party, they're former political staffers. That's the route that they take to get into Parliament. Not as it's intended. They're meant to be, the people that you put into Parliament should be elected representatives that have experience in the real world. Uh, People that have built businesses or run businesses or just had full-time jobs and they understand the pressures of having a mortgage and paying taxes and trying to raise a family and having to deal with the cost of living. A lot of these people, they're so within their own bubble, they don't see the outside world. I mean, I was blown away being in the Liberal Party, going to meetings, and Peter Dutton had just announced this policy on nuclear energy. I thought that would be the big discussion. They'd all be discussing it. Most of the people in there barely even knew what they didn't know anything about nuclear energy. They wouldn't be able to formulate an argument for it or against, but they barely even knew that he'd announced it. It's like, well, why are you guys in here? Like, what do you really want to talk about? All they wanted to talk about, it was like a gossip club. Oh,
mm,
did you hear this person said this and this person did that? And oh, we've got to get rid of this person. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was encouraged. I mean, there are good people in the Liberal Party. I don't want to paint it as a picture that they're all terrible people, but the good people are just beaten down, beaten down, beaten down, and that's a big reason why a lot of people are leaving the Liberal Party. But the good people in the Liberal Party did approach me, and I was actually in a good branch. I was a secretary of Condamine branch here on the Northern Beaches, and people within that branch encouraged me to run for pre-selection at the last federal election here in Warringah, and that's when it all started. I was getting phone calls by the higher up saying, look, we've already picked Jamie Rogers as our anointed candidate here in Warringah. We don't want to go to a pre-selection. We just want her to start campaigning straight away. Look, I've never met Jamie Rogers. She's probably a lovely lady, just like Catherine Dees was a lovely lady in the election beforehand. But they never give these girls the opportunity that they should to run strong campaigns. They're almost just puppets. And what I was told was that if I don't pull my nomination, that I would get expelled from the party, and I refused to. I was like, "Well, kick me out then. I don't care." And I was
Really?
expelled. And it was, I got to say, it was probably the happiest moment that I've had for quite a while. And to be expelled from the Liberal Party, because as soon as you go into these parties, you're told what you can say, what you can't say, what you can do, what you can't do. And if you're just held down, then there's no real battle of ideas that is happening. That no conflict of thought that's taking place. You're all just puppets. You're all just numbers in the system, and it's a huge problem for this country because we're not getting good people into Parliament, but they're not even getting the chance to be candidates or to have that political experience where they can learn how to campaign and they can learn how to communicate their views to the general public. uh, it's a complete mess, and that's what we're hoping to address with Australians for Better Government, because we can't rely on these political parties anymore. We can't rely on the politicians anymore to drive change in this country. A lot of the problems that we have are structural, and they never talk about it. Some of the issues that we raise here at Australians for Better Government are complex, and we're having to explain it to the general public because they've never heard it before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're asking me, I get people all the time saying, "Oh, you need to rejoin the Liberal Party. You need to try and get back in." I'm like, why would I? I'm so much happier outside the party, and I can be more effective outside the party than you can ever be within the party.
And they
Well,
charge you
Yeah,
for the privilege of running. I don't know what it is now, but I mean, in my case, they were charging $1,000 just to nominate, and
that's
that
right.
goes
And yeah,
Liberal
and they
Party.
and they don't refund your membership fee when they expel you either.
Oh, jeez. It's worse than the fine cotton affair. I mean, I asked for pre-selection in the seat where Darryl Maguire was in Wagga Wagga, and unbeknownst to all of us, this was unknown at the time that he was in a relationship with the then Premier Gladys Berejiklian. And now, I mean, Darryl Maguire didn't like me. I mean, so there was no chance in the world that I was going to be pre-selected for his seat. So it was $1,000 down the toilet, and I put up a big stink about it, and I even went on the ABC 7:30 report and ended up getting expelled from the Liberal Party. But yeah, this is what happens.
Mate, I think you're
but
better
it
off. You're
doesn't.
better off that you were expelled. I mean, I think it's a badge
Yeah,
of honor in a way. I mean, we can almost build a political
absolutely.
party of expelled Liberal members, and it'd be far better than the Liberal Party is now.
Well, look at John Ruddock. John Ruddock's a perfect example of a guy that should have been backed by the Liberal Party years ago. And he's gone on to be a very liked and hardworking and thoroughly decent politician as a Libertarian Party member now. But it's an opportunity lost. I mean, these are the sorts of people that they're overlooking. And what they don't realise is that by putting in these dopes that they end up putting in. They've got nowhere to maneuver because then they don't have any connection with the people in these electorates. They're not people that you would say, oh well, I'd love to for such and so to represent me or have a beer with them down the pub because they're not those sort of people.
The thing
Look,
that really worries me is that if these parties are as corrupt as they are within themselves, how on earth are they going to run a clean government? That's the problem. The big problem we have in Australia is all these lobby groups and factions. And I'm just an average Australian. I'm done with it. I'm sick and tired of all this internal politicking and the corruption and the nepotism and the secret backroom deals. I mean, you put a bunch of people who carry on like that in their party into government. No wonder the country's a mess.
look, when you look at the last federal election, to think that, I always think about John Howard. Now, and a lot of people say that he wasn't the perfect prime minister, but he was far better than what we have now. And everyone said that John Howard had conviction. And I think that's all we're asking for. We want politicians that have conviction and are willing to stand up and propose ideas that are that they think are gonna benefit the country. I didn't always agree with everything that Paul Keating said, but I at least acknowledge that the guy had conviction and he was willing to argue a point. And John Howard did it when he introduced the GST in 1998 at the 98 election. I mean, that was an incredibly uh, it was an unpopular policy and it was a big risk for him to do that, but he believed in it and he believed that it would benefit the country. Now you can argue whether it has or whether it hasn't, but he at least had the conviction to do that. Can you imagine John Howard going to a federal election with his lead economic policy during a cost of living crisis being, oh, we're going to take 25 cents off the fuel excise for a year? I mean, it is laughable, but that's what the Liberal Party did. And you had minor parties like the Libertarians, like One Nation, like People First, and Family First as well, proposing income splitting as a policy, which would have been an incredible benefit for families, for having the father go out and work and then being able to split the income with the wife who may be at home looking after the kids. It's a family orientated policy. It's an easy policy to implement. You would think that the Liberals would just jump on that straight away, and it's supposedly Labor too. If Labor supposedly stand for working families, that you would think that they would be on board with income splitting. But it was only up to the minor parties to promote good economic policy like that. And some of the policies of the minor parties are exactly what you want, but they just don't get the traction with the media. They don't get the traction with the electorate for whatever reason. But it just blew me away that the Liberal Party just didn't have any quality policies. I mean, I was encouraged when Peter Dutton came out and announced his nuclear policy, a strong nation building policy that could bring great benefit to the country. And he announced it way too soon that I was expecting, okay, well, there must be another 2 or 3 of these policies to come along. They never did. And then they went to sleep on the nuclear issue. They stopped talking about it. They stopped arguing it. And they just
Well,
stopped.
income splitting, I mean, it has such a massive effect down the line too, Stephen. I mean, because I'll give you one example of how that policy would be a benefit to a family with kids that are growing up. I mean, kids that are in the country, they can't just hop on the train like they can at Mossman and go to the university down the road.
Yeah.
Um, they've got to rem remove themselves from the family and sometimes live 6, 7, 8 hours drive away, or in Sydney, where you cannot get a rental place for under $500-600 a week, and that's been very conservative. I mean, and then these poor buggers, they can't get any assistance from Centrelink because mum and dad are a police officer and a paramedic or a nurse and a teacher, and they're earning $200,000 a year, and it puts them over the threshold for these kids to get the study allowance. I mean, it is criminal. And then these families are then having to help these kids going to uni, studying basic degrees to go and give back to their communities, give back so that they can have a life.
Look, everyday Australians are getting squeezed in all different directions. I mean, just look at the debt. I mean, think about the intergenerational theft that's happening just with that. I mean, our kids, our grandkids are going to have to be burdened with that debt forever, and we have nothing to show for it. You think if we had a new highway somewhere or a new dam somewhere or whatever, or high speed rail, you go, okay, well, at least that might bring benefit to future generations. But we've spent over $1 trillion, we're in over $1 trillion of debt with nothing to show for it. Housing is incredibly expensive despite the land that we have in this country, and they keep bringing people in from overseas. They keep pumping the country full, with migrants. Look, I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you're bringing in 600,000 people from India and China, or if you're bringing in 600,000 people from Queensland. And it's just simple supply and demand. Where are you going to house those people? Where are you going to put them? How do you have the services to be able to have the schools and the hospitals and the public transport and everything that comes along with it? And you have people like Mark Butler get on TV and say, "Oh, we're trying to control immigration. We're trying to get people to stop coming here and to go home when they finish their course, their degrees at uni or whatever it is." Like, what are you talking about? You're the government. You're meant to be controlling this. This is why we put you
Yeah.
there in government. But the problem is the Australian people have never been given the option to answer the question on immigration. They've never been asked, are we happy with the level of immigration that we have in this country? I mean, there are so
Well,
many issues. The cost of living, the cost of energy, the rollout of renewable energy, and how much it's costing the country, and what it's doing to our rural communities and landscapes and wildlife habitats and all these things. I mean, we are in a lot of strife in this country, and you can, and it all leads back to Canberra or Macquarie Street or state parliaments around the country. It's all government driven, and we are a big mess. And that's why we're saying Australians for Better Government. Look, a lot of these issues come from the structural side of how our system's set up. You only have to look at separation of powers. It's a massive, massive, massive issue that a lot of people don't understand, and it never gets talked about. But we're meant to have three branches of government in this country: the legislature, which is the parliament, that's the House of Representatives and the Senate. A lot of people think that's where the separation of powers is. Yes, it is a bicameral system, but that's only one branch of government. You also have the judiciary, which I think a lot of people understand, which is the courts, and they rule on government policy. But it's the executive branch that people don't understand. And that's where laws are to be implemented, and where the government departments sit. Now, where it currently is, if you read Chapter 2 of the Constitution, it says that the Governor General is meant to exercise the power of the executive. It doesn't say anything about the Prime Minister. It doesn't say anything about the government of the day. But by Westminster Convention, it states that the Prime Minister and the government select the Governor General and then advise the Governor General. So the Governor General only becomes this ceremonial position. But when did the Australian people ever vote on the Westminster system, and whether we were willing to accept the conventions of the Westminster system? So what you've got, if you've got the Prime Minister and the government running the legislature and also running the executive, where is the separation of powers? Where is the accountability between those two branches? Where's the conflict of ideas and thought between those two branches? This is something that never gets talked about in this country, and that's why we say at Australians for Better Government, it's the Australian people that should be electing, not the government selecting. The Australian people should elect the Governor General, and then the Governor General should then run that executive branch of government, just like a president runs the executive branch in the United States of America. And the second part of that is, if you look at Section 64 of the Constitution, it relates to how ministers get selected. Now, there's one line, it's called the Ministers to Sit in Parliament line. That one line completely wrecks our system of government in this country, because what it says is that ministers have to be selected by the suboptimal group of people that are sitting in the parliament. And as we've said, a lot of these people are union hacks, they're former political staffers, they've never worked in the real world, they have no industry experience in the portfolios that they're now given. Perfect example is Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles. He's Minister of Defence. And if you look at his bio, if you go on his Defence Minister website, it talks about him being a keen photographer and a local history expert and a snow dome collector. I mean, what's that got to do with running the Defence Force? But what it doesn't say is that at every step, from the moment that he walked into the university to when he was elected in Parliament, he's been involved in the union movement.
yeah.
Where is his experience in defense? Where is Chris Bowen's experience in climate change or energy? They have none. So if we were to push a referendum where we were to delete that line from the Constitution, you could then go into the broad Australian public and choose ministers based on their industry experience. And I know you guys have had a lot of experts on this show. You've had a lot of health experts. I mean, people like Dr. Melissa McCann, that could be an example of someone that could be health minister, that would understand health more than, look at here in New South Wales, we had Brad Hazzard during the pandemic as health minister. What did Brad Hazzard know about health? I mean, you could put Peter Cosgrove as Minister of Defence instead of Richard Marles. I mean, these are reforms that could easily be done through referendum in this country. It's never going to be talked about if we leave it up to the politicians and the political parties.
But as we talk about referendums, we just had that dud referendum, that was just a complete waste of, $500 million plus. We needed to have a referendum on whether the people of Australia wanted to be governed by the World Health Organization in the IHR. That needed to be done. Other
Yeah, no,
issues,
yep.
what a waste of money. There could have been 3 or 4 issues canvassed in that whole referendum instead of putting up a referendum that was doomed to fail anyway. I mean, is there no end to the stupidity of our current Prime Minister?
Look, we should be having referendums regularly. Like the Constitution should be an evolving document. It's up to the Australian people to have a say on what's said in the Constitution, and you don't always have to go to referendum as well. We do support citizens initiated referenda. I think that's a good option, but
Yep.
some of these things can be done through binding plebiscites as well. Have the Australian people ever been asked on whether we want to be a member of the United Nations or the World Health Organization? That's something that should go to a plebiscite. Any international treaties that we engage with, again, that should go to a plebiscite and have the Australian people choose whether we want that to happen or not. Same thing with the debt. I mean, there should be a set debt ceiling, and if governments want to exceed that debt ceiling, it should go to a public plebiscite. And then those politicians should have to argue why they want to increase the debt. And if they break that plebiscite, then the Governor General should call a double dissolution election. I mean, these are things that we can implement that have more accountability in our system to put pressure on these politicians to say, you guys can't just do whatever you want. There's a lot of these decisions that you need to consult with the Australian people. And as I said, issues like immigration, both parties support mass immigration. I mean, the Liberals have, even under John Howard, were bringing in tremendous amounts of immigration. And the Australian people never get asked. I was told that it was Malcolm Fraser even put in his book that the Australian people should never be given the option to make the decision on immigration because they'll always get it wrong. This is the mentality of these people, these politicians that get into government. They think that they know more than the Australian people, and that's not how the system is meant to operate. It's the Australian people. They're the masters. The politicians are the servants, and that's the relationship. That's how it's meant to be, and that's what we're talking about. We need to get back to that system where the Australian people have more of a say on how this country is run, and it shouldn't just be left to the politicians in Canberra and in state parliaments.
We talk about all these situations going on, and we've been through several elections now where independents and minor parties have been lobbying to try and get a foothold. One Nation continues to hang on, but it grows a little. But then they're finally going this year to a branch system, which I believe is long overdue. They need to have some democracy going on within that party. It's clear there's no love lost between the One Nation Party and Gerard Rennick. That's been made abundantly clear, tragically. Where do you see One Nation? You've been involved in it. Is it really a party or is it a company?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. Look, in first, to address Malcolm Robertson and Gerard Rennick, we're actually hosting an event for ABG, on the Gold Coast in 2 weeks at CSI Club Southport on Sunday, August 3rd. You can head to australiansforbetter.com and buy your tickets. They're only $20. Tickets are actually selling very, very well. And both Malcolm and Gerard are going to be there. And they're both going to be speaking, and they're also going to be on a Q&A panel together. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
I'd love to be a fly on that wall.
Yes, that's right. Look, I mean, these guys used to be friends, and obviously this is the consequence of the system that we're in, that we have all these minor parties on the right that should be in the one party, but they're forced into situations where they have to go to elections and compete against each other, and that's just what competition breeds. Sometimes it breeds some bad blood because it's not kumbaya. It's now you're having to go against someone in another party, and that's just the political process. So look, I hope that Malcolm and Gerard can patch things up because they're both incredibly valuable to this country, and I would like to see both do well politically. Because we need them to. I mean, we need people like Malcolm Roberts in the parliament. We need people like Gerard Rennick in the parliament. But in regards to One Nation and my experience in that party, when I remember giving a speech my first speech when first became the candidate for Warringah, and I was really saying that the Liberal Party had abandoned their core values, and it was time for a third party to rise up here in this country. And I saw One Nation being that vehicle where we saw a lot of good candidates come into that party. We saw the same thing with the UAP, which I think is another missed opportunity. I think the UAP at the 2022 election had an incredible amount of good quality candidates that
Yeah.
put their hand up to run. These people should have been given a chance to build branches, to build their profile, to advance their position in the community so they're more electable at the next election. But that just didn't happen. Basically, Clive Palmer, for whatever reason, packed up his ball and went home and then came back with the trumpet of patriots, which was just a disaster.
My God.
But in regards to One Nation, my experience within that party, and I didn't really realize this at the very end, was I don't think they want to grow. I'm convinced that they like it where it's at because it's more controllable. Obviously, if you read their constitutions, Pauline Hanson has all the power in that party. So we'll wait and see. There's been a lot of talk about them building branches all throughout their history. I know it's being pushed supposedly by Lee Hanson, who's Pauline's daughter. So that
She's
might
good
give.
quality.
Yeah, I think well, she definitely speaks better than Pauline. I mean, I think I have high hopes for Lee. I don't know too much about her at this stage. But look, One Nation has a role to play. I think they have great policies. I agree with all their policies. I just don't agree with how the party's run, and that's a big reason why I left that party. And yeah, as I said, I'm convinced that they're where they're at is exactly where they want to be, and that's why so many good quality people leave that party. I mean, you can list them. There's about 38 One Nation people that have been elected to parliaments all around the country over its history, and I think you only have about well, it's only really Malcolm Roberts that has stayed loyal. I know they still have
Yeah.
Ricky Lee Terrell down in Victoria, but they just lost Sarah Game. Sarah Game is high quality. I mean, she's a tremendously fantastic uh, politician down in South Australia, and they even lost Sarah Game. So it's look. I mean, it's incredibly disappointing because I think the party has tremendous potential and a tremendous opportunity to grow, and I think people want a they want to get behind a party. Even people in the Liberal Party, they're not happy with the Liberal Party. They stay because they see no alternative. I think if a new third party on the right was to rise up and be professional and run effectively and have great people behind them, I think that would instantly generate a lot of support. I think a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are there. I think the big thing that's holding them back is just lack of funds. But you know, if you can get someone that's smart that can get behind it and fund it, that doesn't want to be a figurehead like Clive Palmer wants to be, I think there's a tremendous opportunity and a lot of room for that party to grow and to succeed.
Well, I think I really like Malcolm Roberts. I really like Jared Rennick. I think they're incredibly decent men.
Yeah.
Malcolm was here with his wife for a weekend just recently,
Mm.
and at our place, and it's just we want to tear our hair out when we see all these great candidates and they're all batting for different parties and whatever. But personally, I really believe that People First has got a really good chance of building something solid. And despite the argument between Jared Rennick and Malcolm Roberts, I think People First is setting up in a much better structure. I think Jared's got a lot of runs on the board, and he's very, very popular. He's got age on his side as well. I can't talk about that. I'm 72. I mean, it's just there's so much potential there, and I think a lot of people are going to get behind it. John, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's true, Hoodie, and I think as these sorts of platforms like we're doing become more uh, available to people, I think that will have influence as well. I mean, because certainly it's in Australia's benefit to have somebody like Rennick be successful. It would make a massive difference to the way that the outcomes of this country for everyone, because I think he's very sensible. So yeah, look, that's something we can only hope for, I suppose. But I think part of that is organisations like this too that Stephen's obviously put together. I mean, what's the nucleus of your team? Is Kevin Lockray involved, or yeah? So
Yeah.
you've got a lot of experience there and a lot of really good people, going forward. Tell us a bit about them.
We've been blessed with the quality people that we've got. Yes, I co-founded Australians for Better Government with Kevin Lockray. It really developed out of conversations I was having with him on my podcast, Commanding the Narrative. I mean, Kevin, former Lieutenant Colonel, spent 32 years in the Australian military, spent 4 years with the British military where he studied biological warfare. And that led him to he could see COVID happening and he understood it and he spoke out against it. He also studied thermodynamics, so he speaks very well on climate change. So I'd have him on the podcast all the time to discuss these issues. And he's a wealth of knowledge. I don't know how I mean, he's a brilliant mind. And one of the common themes that kept coming up was this deficiency in the structure of our government. And one of the things Kevin said once was that it was his intention to set up a foundation that would hope to address some of these issues with our constitution, with the way that we vote, and also optimizing the performance of our government. And I basically took that ball and ran with it, and we set up Australians for Better Government. We've been able to attract a lot of great people to our board, people like Tony Ballier and also Mark down in South Australia, and Peter Hale, who's been heads of committees, federal and state committees throughout his whole career. We even have a member, Lee Evans, who's the chairman of the Campaign for an Independent Britain. He's in the UK, a lot of experience behind him. So we've had a lot of great people join us on the committee, but we've also had a lot of people attracted to us. I mean, we're seeing incredible growth with our membership and also the events that we're hosting because I think people resonate with what we're saying. People instinctively know that there's something really wrong in this country. And I think one of the mistakes that people make, and I made this mistake myself, is thinking that you have to get in Parliament to change things. I have to be a candidate. I have to run an election to be able to do something. And look, I think that's one piece of the puzzle. But I mean, I see a tremendous opportunity with groups like Australians for Better Government and also Let's Rethink Renewables, which I'm also president of. Um, we can have great influence on the politicians and also the Parliament. And you only need to learn from the left. That's exactly what the left do. I remember speaking at a candidate forum in 2022 run by the Northern Beaches Climate Council Action Group or whatever it was called. Anyway, the guy that runs it called me after the forum just to convey, canvass my thoughts on how it went. And I just got talking to him. He said, look, our group started with 7 blokes in the pub, and now we have 32 groups across the Northern Beaches focused on climate change. And a little light bulb went off on top of my head. I'm like, this is how they do it. They flood the market with all these lobby groups and think tanks and whatever it might be. And it might be 2 or 3 people sitting in there behind a logo on a website, but that's it. But when they have their events, they've got all these logos down the bottom saying, oh, look how many groups support us. I think that's more the mentality we need to start adopting. There definitely needs to be one political party that we get behind because having so many fragmented different parties splits the vote and there's problem with preferencing and that sort of thing. But having dedicated groups that just stay in their lane, like Australians for Better Government is focused on governmental reform. Let's Rethink Renewables is focused on the energy system and the rollout of renewable energy. Having those groups play their part, build up their membership, and then work together when the opportunity arises, I think there's incredible power behind that. And look, I look at some of the political parties, and I don't want to be too harsh, but the Heart Party, I mean, they go to elections and they poll, down the bottom. The Heart Party should be a lobby group. I mean, the issues that they stand for are incredibly important, and what the work that Michael O'Neill is doing is fantastic. The work that Barbara O'Neill is fantastic, and everyone involved in the Heart Party, they're saying the right things in my view. But I think they would be better served as a lobby group as opposed to a political party, because when they're in a position where they're when they're a political party, now they have to go to elections and poll maybe 1%, 2%, and it appears to the broader Australian community that they've failed. when all they really want to do is get those issues out there, well, then stop running in elections. Set up a professional lobby group where we have a professional board, and then you can still advocate
Brilliant.
those issues, and you don't have the negativities that come along with going to an election and only receiving a handful of votes. So I think that's where we need to really look to. We need to, I mean, look, Climate 200, what they've been able to achieve with the teal movement. I mean, I don't know if any group on the right side of politics is ever going to be able to achieve what they've achieved. But you need to look at them as an example, as a blueprint of where we need to go and how we need to adapt. And look, anything in politics is a long-term game,
Mm.
and we sometimes we have to take a step back and realize what we've accomplished and what we've done. We've been at this since 2020, most of us, because COVID was really the catalyst of getting us involved. It's been 4 or 5 years. It's nothing really in the whole scheme of things politically. Anthony Albanese spent 30 years in politics before he became prime minister. John Howard, an equal amount of time. Anything that happens politically takes a long, long time. And I know a lot of people feel anxious that something needs to happen because they can see things going wrong in this country. But we need to sometimes take a step back and we need to see all the things that we've achieved because we have achieved a lot. It doesn't seem like that in the vacuum of the current moment. But I think we need to start learning and adapting, and I think that's what we're doing. And I really do believe that groups like Australians for Better Government and Let's Rethink Renewables and other groups that are similar are really a big piece of the puzzle. And I think they have tremendous potential and can have potential power behind us as long as enough people jump on board and support us.
Mate, you really made some good sense. We need to collaborate a little bit more, I think, Stephen.
Yep.
We need to be talking more often on each other's programs.
Yep.
Let's get involved in this because there's some really good stuff there.
Mm.
I'm going to bring another guest on now who's is probably one of the happiest men in Australia, and you get the opportunity, Stephen, to share in his joy as we bring on our next guest. And here he comes. Well, that's his wife, Kate.
There we go.
There we go. Josh Hawkes, one of the founding members of the Australian Firefighters Alliance. You're wearing a T-shirt that John and I have been proudly wearing for the last 3 or 4 years. You've got to be one of the happiest men in Victoria at the moment. A bittersweet moment for you, I guess. But Josh, tell us the news.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Thanks, John, for having me on. So this afternoon we received confirmation from the Fire Rescue Victoria Commissioner that the cohort of firefighters that have been stood down since October 2021 will be availed of the opportunity to return to the jobs that they loved. And that will be via a process that has been basically forged in the Fair Work Commission via a process that has been exhaustive, quite challenging at times, but due to a willingness from all parties to see this resolved, including those represented by the AFA in the Fair Work Commission, we've achieved this result, and I think it's. I've received a number of phone calls today, just people just in disbelief that this chapter is finally over.
When I first got the news, I don't know about Johnny, but I actually teared up. You guys have been so disciplined. You've been so authentic. You've been real. You've conducted a precision operation during this whole event. It's been well organised. You and Dan McDonald and all the other guys. I won't mention too many names. Some of them are back at work in other organisations, but we have been honorary members of the AFA for quite a while, and that's one thing we're really proud of. And to see you guys have a win like this, it just beggars belief. But it must be you must be feeling like it's a bit of an anticlimax.
That is 100% it, Hoodie. Yep, that's there's a numbness to it that I can't quite describe. And then obviously you go through a sort of revisionary process with everything that we've been through, including, I mean, right back to Canberra when we were standing with you at the courthouse, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's been huge. And having spoken to or nearly all the directors, I can't quite get a hold of Andrew, but there's been so much work behind the scenes. It's just an incalculable amount of effort, personal effort. We've called on so many people. I mean, uh, Russell Broadbent, like he's
Yeah.
just going to be such a loss for that next Parliament. I've already spoken to his uh, executive assistant Tanya today. Just wonderful people. There's so many that I could name, and we're probably going to lean on them for a little while yet for some just support. I'm trying to organise now for those who are re-entering this phase back to work. Just some assistance, like in terms of how to negotiate what a journey it's been for them emotionally, and to have to re-enter that fray. I mean, the job itself is going to be a challenge. I'm sure they're up for it, but obviously, just at the very moment, to have this out of the way after 1,375 days, Hoodie and John, um, and all of that, we have just basically stood behind this shield of God that is just the circumstances that have taken place. Is probably for another occasion, just with respect to Stephen. I know you got an interview happening, but what's come to pass over the last few months, especially this year, but you can look at it in retrospect. It all leads up to it, and then the times that we've spent with you guys talking about it. It's undeniable that his hand was all over this. So, and I really want to thank you guys as well, because you've been a huge support to us, honorary members of the AFA, as you say. But in the same vein that everyone has stood firm and held that line from the very beginning. Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure, John. We we've bled with these fellas. I mean, it was just in Canberra. They were always there. And we've done a lot of things together, Josh, you and I, and Kate, and it to me, it's just an absolute joy to hear this news. And I've got to ask you the burning question: do you think you'll be putting a uniform back on?
That's a yes. Yep. Um, there's there's unfinished business there, I think, and what we've shown, and you both know some of the intimacies of why, but I feel as though there is, a definite challenge ahead of us that the AFA will be a part of, and yeah, that's the purpose. But for right now, we'll just enjoy this news.
Great stuff, Johnny.
Well, it can happen anywhere. I mean, if we can get this result out of Victoria, uh, one of the worst uh, tyrannical governments in the world, if they can now wind back this and allow these guys to go back to work, then surely this has to be the benchmark for every other state in Australia. There still shouldn't be police being stopped from working in New South Wales. They shouldn't have this misconduct mess hanging over their heads. And the Justin Paws of the world should be watching this tonight and holding out a glimmer of hope that hopefully in other states their Labor counterparts, the Chris Minns government in New South Wales, etc., will take notice of this and act responsibly and in a humanitarian way that has been lacking over the last 5 years. And I mean, to see this guy, he has been at the forefront of fighting this mess from day dot. He's sacrificed so much for his country and his family has taken a back seat. And a lot of things have taken a back seat um, to fight this for so many. So it's a wonderful day, Josh. I'm just so glad that it's worked out. Um, it's worked out that you can put that uniform back on and go back to a life of service. And look, I say thank you to the Victorian Fire Rescue Organisation for coming to the party and doing the decent thing. I mean that's the right thing to do. It may well be too late in the eyes of some, and I'd have to agree it has been a complete mess, but you got there in the end. You did the decent thing, and you should at least be applauded for doing that and making this right.
And there's one more thing too, John. Your brother paramedics in Queensland, almost 50 of them.
Mm.
It's time,
Yeah.
Premier Crisafulli. It's time to get these men back to work. These men and women. We need them back on the front line. Get them back
Mm.
to work. Have a look at this. Have a look at this interview that we're doing now. See it for what it is. Are you seeing any malice? No. Are you seeing a willingness to get back to serve the community? Yes, you are. Have you seen tenacity and discipline in the last 4 years with this man and his brothers and sisters in the AFA? Yes, you have. Now is the time to put all this rubbish behind us and let's start restoring and healing this country. And this is a very, very good first step. A very good first step. And I think it's timely that you're sharing this news with us for a couple of reasons. Because as I look out my window, Tanya Dannock, Russell Broadbent's executive assistant, is driving in the driveway. We're going to have dinner here together tonight. She and Roger and Michelle and I. We're going to drink a lemonade toast to the AFA, and it's just good news all round. She's beaming
Oh,
as I
actually,
look.
I think she's got some non-alcoholic wine for you, Hoodie.
Oh, that's really good. I don't mind. I'm partial. I'd actually even have a tipple of the real stuff. The way I'm feeling at the
I
moment.
hope Roger bought some fish. That
Oh
man
yeah,
is a fisherman.
yep, yep. We're going to be talking about fishing once we discuss you guys. I'm going to take him up the shed and show him a few rods I've got.
If you don't mind, Hoodie and John and Stephen, I just want to really acknowledge that there is a really collaborative process in this, and Fire Rescue Victoria have been really cooperative in the Fair Work Commission. I was in there in each session with our legal representatives, and obviously the union as well. And between the three parties, even though I was disappointed to see that wasn't acknowledged in the official communication today, but it is 100% a collaborative effort to get to this point. So that has to be acknowledged. And John's right, for organisations to do the right thing. And I think there is a lot of reflection going on in the back half of this year now, with a lot of, like, your interviews have been stunning with Angus Dalgleish and Paul Marrick. There probably are a lot of executives that are starting to look at which way the wind's blowing, and they're thinking, well, back then we did what we did, but we probably have to retrace our steps a little bit. So, yeah, I'm just bestowing a bit of gratitude that way as well.
And look, I want to acknowledge the people who watch this program because, unbeknownst to everybody until now, Club Grubbery was able to broker some much needed finance from a couple of beautiful people, absolutely stunning people who really believed in your cause, and they came good with a substantial amount of money at the end to get this to the line. And they know who they are.
That's so
They're the kind
true.
of people they don't want praise and anything. I know they give all glory to God because they're beautiful Christian people, and they're amazing. And one of them was here at our place last weekend too. So there's kind of a synergy going on. And God's right in the middle of it, Josh, isn't he?
100%. And we felt that hand all the way through.
Yeah, well, I think it must be time we had a prayer and then come back for a final statement. Eh? What do you reckon? Lord Father in heaven, we are 4 real Australians. And Lord, we love our country. And that means we love the people that live in it. Those who agree with us and those who don't. It matters not. Yes, we're angry. Yes, some of us want vengeance. But the real thing we want, Lord, is remedy. Please give us remedy. Help us to restore our nation. Help us to restore our once proud spirit. Lord, there are still some incredible men and women who are locked out of the workplace because of these draconian measures, measures that were instilled for no reason at all. You know their hearts, Lord. You know our hearts. And we just want to thank you, Father God, for the wonderful work that you've been working behind the scenes. We don't often see your hand at work, but I tell you what, we see it often as well. And today is one of those days. So on behalf of all involved, Father God, we thank you, we praise you, we love you, and we pray for a double dose of Holy Spirit and compassion to restore the division in this once great country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Stephen, absolute delight having you on, mate. And as we said, we'd love to continue this relationship. I think we need to come together at least every couple or 3 weeks and maybe touch bases on what's going on. You just look the real deal, you sound the real deal, and that's because you are the real deal. So thanks for being on, mate. Johnny?
Yeah, look, it's probably fitting that Stephen was on today with this announcement because it demonstrates that when government does act responsibly and does do the right thing by its people, then you get good outcomes, and nobody benefits from the mess that has been the daily life of those involved and suffering from this mess over the last 5 years, but with common sense and a willingness to move forward and some reflection on how we must do things in the future as opposed to this draconian way that things have been done, I think is a step forward, and it's absolutely magnificent, Josh. I'm just so grateful that you guys can go back to work, and I just hope that common sense filters around the country into everyone's workplace, and that doesn't just mean COVID vaccines either. I mean, we don't want mandates on anything. If somebody wants a flu jab, they can have one. If they don't want one, they don't have to get it. It doesn't matter what it is. So, I mean, let's just hope that this is sincere and that you go back to work and there's no conditions put on anything, and that it's all as it appears. But time will tell. We go in with the best of intentions to do the right thing by everyone, and let's hope they do that.
Look, I'll just jump in quickly. I think it speaks to what I was saying before about politics being a long game, and the fact that you guys were so tenacious with the AFA proves that we can accomplish things in this country if we stick to it. Things seem impossible at times, and they seem insurmountable. But if we keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, and doing the hard work behind the scenes, we can really accomplish things in this country, and we do have a lot of potential in this country. We have tremendous potential, and I don't think we've ever even come close to approaching where this country really could be if we were led correctly. So it's up to the Australian people now to lead the way, and groups like the AFA. I mean, a clear example of being in a fight that I'm sure at times seemed impossible, but they've seen it through, and they didn't give up, and they didn't surrender, and they fought on till the very end, and now they've got the victory. So it's a real symbol of what we can achieve in this country, and I think we should all be mindful of that.
Absolutely.
Mm.
What are you and Kate going to do tonight? Are you going to celebrate, or are you just going to go to bed and have an early night?
So interestingly, the kids aren't back at school until tomorrow, so there might be some sort of celebration dinner, I suppose, but that numbness is still there, Graham. So
Yeah.
a few more phone calls. I've already spoken to Dan McDonald. That these guys in the AFA, they're just salt of the earth people, and yeah, there's a lot more to work on, and as I say, preparing people for this re-entry into frontline firefighting, which is no easy thing to do, like from a cold start, but we'll prepare people as best as we can.
Well, it's the firefighting fraternity in Victoria is in good hands, and you're going to be welcomed back with open arms, I'm sure. Yeah, look, there'll be some difficulties. So let's face the facts. But for anybody in this country who's watching this particular program, a lot of you have been losing hope lately. A lot of you have said, oh, what's the point? We haven't achieved anything. You know what? If we hadn't tried, we've got no idea the state we might be in at the moment in this country. We're a mess at the moment. We're not out of the woods, but boy, oh boy. Johnny, I remember on the 12th of February 2022, we stood on that stage in Canberra with countless people in front of us. I say countless because it's almost impossible to work out who was there and how many. And I remember as things were starting to build and people were getting ready for the speeches, a young fellow with his baseball cap on backwards, about 12 rows into the crowd, yelled up at me and he said, Hoody, I'm sick of this. What does victory look like? And I remember yelling out to him, look around you, mate. That's what victory looks like. I want to say to him, if he's watching tonight, look at Josh Hawkes and look at these guys. It's taken years. That's what victory looks like. And if you're not prepared to stay in there for the full term and give this every effort you've got, then you'll never know what victory tastes like. But right now you can. So on that note, Johnny, I think
You just couldn't make this stuff up, could you?
you couldn't. And we worship an amazing God. Stephen Tripp, thank you so much. Josh Hawkes, you're an absolute champion. It's been a pleasure being in the trench with you. And we're not out of it yet, but we'll always be there with you as we know you'll be there with us. So
100%.
Australia, amidst all the division, amidst all the hatred and the triggering and the anxiety, don't forget to love one another. For goodness sake, just put all the differences aside and can we just get on? Can we just agree to disagree and just say, look, you know what? We're falling into a trap. Hatred. There's no incident in history that I can recall where hatred won the day. It doesn't work. And you've seen it tonight. Josh could have been full of rhetoric tonight, but he's not. He's humble in victory. And that's how we need to be. Embrace the people who stop calling people who've been vaccinated idiots and all that sort of stuff. Embrace them. There, but for the grace of God go I. And you know what? Every day, if we chip away like that with compassion, we are going to see victory on a grander scale. So stay out of the trees, everyone. It's been a pleasure bringing this program to you. It's one of the ones I've really enjoyed, Johnny, and I know you have. And we can't wait to get back to you with another episode of Club Grubbery very, very soon, the next couple of days. Stay out of the trees. God bless you. If you love your country, stand for it. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.